those financial issues were actually very, very difficult times that time. So with that time, we used to get Reserve Bank, permission to travel abroad, Then if I take travel permission for 7 days, I have to come back within 7 to 10 days. If I stay beyond, then it's considered, not legal. So I remember getting into trouble of 1-2 times I traveled. I stayed beyond 30 days. Then the matter went into Reserve Bank, show cause notice was issued on me, Many girls have said this. They say after they start earning, they become like part of decision makers in the family.
Yeah.
Before that, they had no say in decision making.
Yeah.
Even in their parents' house also.
Before that, they may not have even had the ability to have to move around, to go out. They may be stuck at home a little. Their mobility is restricted.
Yeah.
We have a lot of automation. We are continuously having automation in factories, only for improvement and skilling the work.
If you look at the textile industry, fabric making, right?
Yes.
That used to be very manual process,
Right.
knitting, weaving. Now it's fully automated.
Right.
You go to a textile factory and you barely see any people. It's all machinery. And the garment factories which is like the assembly of the garments, right? You receive the raw fabric, the raw material, and you cut it and assemble it. That is still very manual for multiple reasons.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining for another episode of Growth is Good. Today we have with us Mr. Harish Ahuja and Anant Ahuja. Harish ji is today MD and Chairperson of Shahi Exports. This is one of India's and the world's largest apparel export companies. They employ more than 100,000 people today. But they started from very humble beginnings. Mr. Ahuja's mother started the firm and took it, and Mr. Ahuja has been instrumental in taking it from where it was to where it is today. So we're very lucky to have him with us and to be able to hear the story of Shahi Exports. Let's dive in. The way we usually start is by asking people about the personal story and the personal connection with economic growth. When did you notice that growth makes your life and the life of people around you different, better? How does it change? And I was very excited to ask you this question because you have been the generator of economic growth and the cause of improvement for so many lives around you. So how did you first notice it? How did you start realizing that it makes people's lives better? How did you make that a part of your mission and a part of your story?
When we started in 1974, that was, the time we were just like more of means to earn, means of living,
Exactly.
Just started as a small business from home, see means of living. So started going, then started doing well. So it went on. It was not until 2000, when we realized that how much potential this business has, in, helping. My mother was always sure from day one that she's doing this, so that, the woman can get work. And she says, otherwise I see women have no work at all. We are able to provide jobs to women, and which is so good. Then I started realizing in 2000, this is really, helping by giving jobs. But till that time, we also had restrictions of export by quota.
Yes.
So quota was, and then, we could only export what quotas we were having, and there was a lot of competition in getting quotas. And not until 2005, quotas were abolished. And then we can expand the way we have our capacities. Before that, we were restricted by the quotas which we would have. So then we started changing, and then we started seeing, and then we started taking factories in 2010 to small towns, where we knew that in big cities it's very hard, mostly migrant labor coming here, and getting. Other day I was in a meeting, minister was asking me, why don't you have factories of 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 like we have now for iPhone, which has got 50,000 workers. So I said, our business is in fact just apt for the country, that our capital cost is very low. Now we have got 50 plants, we can put plants where the workers are. We can take work where workers live. We don't have to bring migrant laborers to our factories. and then they leave families and come and do work here. So we have put factories in towns where workers are available. Since most of them workers are women, 70% of women workers, they have both two jobs, home and also the work, and they are able to do this quite well by coming to staying in the homes with the families, coming to work and still going back. So we put one factory where we have about 25 to 3,000 workers. They come by nearby areas so that they can commute in a short distance and go back home. So this model is working very, very well. If I put a factory for 22,000 workers, I have to bring migrant workers. They would leave home. So our business doesn't require that. Fortunately, since our capital cost is so low, we can take factories where workers are available.
Harishji, that's fascinating. And you said some stuff that I found very interesting, and I'll dig a little bit deeper into that. Aapne kaha that, early on when your mother started and she saw the potential very early, but you thought of it as a sort of means to a living until...
Because we were young, I was just maybe 21-year-old now, 20-year-old now.
Yeah. And so tell us more about the beginning years, right? Like, so when we wrote the case study on Shahi, we interacted with a lot of people at Shahi, and we learned a lot about the later years because that's when people started joining you. But I would love to hear more about the early years, what it was like to run a business at that time, because you mentioned quotas was one problem, but importing and exporting and foreign exchange and all of those things are also very big issues in India before 1991. So what can you tell us about the early years?
Those issues were also quite actually, those foreign exchange issues were actually very, very difficult times that time. So with that time, we used to get Reserve Bank, permission to travel abroad, Then if I take travel permission for 7 days, I have to come back within 7 to 10 days. If I stay beyond, then it's considered, not legal. So I remember getting into trouble of 1-2 times I traveled. I stayed beyond 30 days. It was only 10 days travel, Then the matter went into Reserve Bank, I had to go, I was, show cause notice was issued on me, how we stay so long, how do we get money to stay long. I said I was able to manage within the same money which I took back with. So it was quite difficult times, those times, that. But, and also when we were young, we travel and see business coming, we used to carry suitcases, walk in go to city and carry suitcases. And then we did not go with prior appointments because there was no phone calls, no telexes, no emails. It was just we were going a business trip, we were going to call the customer, and then we try to meet with them. So we go for a trip for 7-10 days, and it happened that we stay for I stayed for a month or so, and I was booking business, I was stay long,
Right.
So all those difficult times were there. There were tough times for foreign exchange. They were tough on every difficult, but and business was small also, so it was not difficult.
Yeah. So when exactly did you when did you start getting involved with the business? Was it right from the
74,
very beginning? 74 itself.
I started traveling from that year onwards.
Okay.
So I remember, I was in Rome. I went with a suitcase. I had to change my ticket. Because there was something trouble with my ticket, rerouting I had to do. So I went to the airline counter. It was quite at a distance in Rome airport. I walked with my suitcase at the airport, and then the counter was closed. They say it will open in 1 hour. So what to do? Then I stayed. I said, I'm carrying suitcases back down and go to there was a cop sitting there. He had a stun gun with them. He said, you go out from here. I said, no, I can't go. Then he said, he didn't understand what I'm trying to tell him. Uh-huh. He pointed the gun at me.
Oh, wow.
So I was not even looking at him, I'm just let me sit down here. So we were very young, we had no experience and all.
Right.
So just learn by experience, what happens, And just go walk in a store. You see a store, they have a few stores, and carry samples, start showing the samples. So now these things you can't think of,
Of course.
So it was everything. A person, 5-10 stores also would go and sell them. Book orders for 100 pieces and be able to ship them to 100 pieces also.
Right. And what was the growth story up until 1991? Did you notice any difference after 1991? Because usse pehle to we had license permits and all of these things. Were you affected personally, and was the business affected by the licensing issues?
No, that was no issue at all. We had no license and all. We were small scale industry that time.
Right.
So there was
And this was
small-
reserved for small scale
small-scale
industry at the
industry,
time.
Not until 2000 when we were quotas opened up in 2005,
Right.
Then we could really expand. Then
Right.
it became large scale sector and all. So there was no quota issue for us.
So how many people were there in Shahi until, let's say, 2000? What was the size of the company?
No, I
by-
would say from exports, if I consider from export wise, so we were just a couple of 100 crores that time,
Okay,
on 200
but that's still quite large. And the industry, like you said, was reserved for small scale. So how did you manage that? Like,
Because on the cost of equipment, on the capital equipment.
okay,
So on that capital equipment was less, but exports could be 100 crores and something
okay.
like that.
So because the investment was small,
Small.
they let you be.
Our, capital cost is very low.
Right.
This,
Right. And even after that, I think the small scale industry reservation only ended in 2008. If I'm, if I
But slowly we started expanding after that. We
Right.
Really growing big that time.
Right. I think in 2000 it was announced that by 2003 the
2005,
quotas will be removed.
They
If
were
I remember
abolished by
correctly.
2005, yeah.
So, did you already see that once the quotas are removed, this is going to be a big business? There's going to be a lot
Because
of
we were
expansion?
getting orders, we were able to, whatever capacities we were orders oversold, and then we were all short by quotas.
Right.
So quotas were the only blockage for our growth.
Right.
When we see quotas are not there, business opened up really well.
It's very interesting that you say this because, again, our trade, even this UK free trade agreement, in auto there is still a quota. The, its tariff is low until
10%,
until a quota is reached.
Ah.
So, I wonder if this message will reach our trade negotiators that quotas are bad. But anyway, so
No, quotas have no use at all. They were only making, middlemen were making money with that, quotas
Yeah.
they were trying to own. It happened with big racket in Hong Kong and all.
yeah, exactly. Things were being shipped out of.
They owned quotas, they owned permanent quotas, and they were selling the quotas.
Yeah.
Here we had better policies that we were getting allocation on the orders and all. But in Hong Kong, it was like a big racket of quota.
Right. That's very interesting. Whenever we try to restrict things, these problems crop up. So you saw quite early on that that expansion is going to be a big thing. In our study with you, we noticed that many people at Shahi have given credit to your decision to bring in professional leadership and professional management. So tell me a little bit about that decision. What prompted you to think about bringing in folks from outside with professional experience, giving them managerial independence? How did you think about this and how did this decision get made?
I thought I would not be able to alone manage everything. I was, my mother and me, just we were two of us here. So I thought and they were, I thought I could not do alone if I have to grow. I have to have a good professional team and also to grow. And then I found, fortunately, it's been very fortunate, I found good people to work along with me and who were able to, since I'm, so then we made 3 divisions, like women division, men's division and knit division. Slowly we keep on, that's how the growth came. And then I can't go alone and manage all the customers myself.
Right.
I have to give divisions and let them feel like ownership. So fortunately, the team which I was able to have, they felt like owners and started growing the business.
What are the other factors that you yourself think contributed to Shahi becoming the enormous success that it has become? And especially, I think, keeping it against the backdrop of the broader Indian sector, where the next biggest competitors to Shahi are 1/3 the size or even less. So what was so different about Shahi?
First of all, like you see, today if somebody wants to get into this apparel business has very little margins. So if you have 200 crores to invest, you will not come in and invest into this business because the margins are below single-digit margins. And then on top of it, you have to take responsibility of the workers also. The way our labor policy is that we have the only option to hire. There's we have no work, we can't let them go. We have hired them, and we have to have them with us as the company unless they want to leave on their own.
Right.
So this is a big obstacle, for people to come in this business. That's why we don't see foreign investments also coming into this, because they see then there's no exit route.
Right.
You come and put factory, then there's no exit route. They have to stay here. So that was one, I think, more fear people had. But somehow I did not have that fear. I was thinking we are doing good for the workers. We want to do employment for the women workers.
Right.
I shouldn't have any trouble of at all. So there's somehow inside feeling which I had, there's nothing to worry. I kept on, earning back and investing into business.
Right. And this exceptionalism is what I found, So when I think about it, it occurs to me that we have to have exceptional people who are okay with taking very large risks for not very large rewards, and also be extremely good managers and extremely good at running businesses. And just like you said, the garment sector in India just does not offer that kind of outsized reward, right? So what you said just to me is a perfect explanation of why it takes exceptional people like yourselves and your managers to be able to take Shahi to what it has become. All the Indian entrepreneurs decide to go elsewhere because there is just better
But they
returns.
want to just employ and then not have any liability of having workers
Exactly.
under their. So that is just, I think they get scared with that now.
Yeah.
But I think our business's best point is this, that we are in a country where abundant workforce is available, and this can be done only by the abundant workforce.
That's right.
So what can be other good business for the country other than this? And
That's right.
fortunately, 90% we have got raw material in the country.
That's
There's no import required also.
Yeah. So let me ask about the workers, and I know that Shahi is justifiably very proud of this, and maybe Anant, maybe you can talk about this a little bit. I think this idea that workers have to be a part of what you're doing, and we spoke a lot actually to your workers while doing the case study. So tell us a little bit more about how Shahi made sure that workers would be a part of the journey and not just a factor of production, if I was to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, my grandmother, she started in this industry as a worker in a factory. And for her, the challenge of sort of, running the household while working the factory job was hard. So she, left the factory work, and she had the opportunity to actually work from home to produce orders from her house. And so I think that whole journey or whole experience of being a factory worker, then being a business owner of a small, home-based operation, then growing that operation, even the way she recruited other women from her community to join her when she was building the company, I think all of that, it left a strong impression on the management style and the perspective that the company had in terms of growth, how to treat workers. Obviously, working with the largest brands and retailers, there's a really high standard of compliance as well.
Right.
So there's already this kind of, perspective that, the treatment of workers is has to be done very well. And then you have the pressures of working with global brands and retailers. And I think both of those combined and, a lot of experience over the years helped us understand that it's really critical, both for the sake of workers, but also for the growth of the business to have the right labor management practices. And that was all, leading up to the time that I joined. I think when I joined, it was about 10 years ago, a little bit more. And the company was already 60,000 people. And there were already a lot of good worker-facing programs, a lot initiated by our customers. The earliest of which that I remember is a program by Gap called the PACE program. And so when I joined, I saw these, all these different things happening, and I realized that while they may have been initiated from like a customer service kind of point of view, or more so like us taking the program and implementing it, we also realized like there's a lot of things that a lot of challenges that we could also innovate on. And I think that's kind of been the journey the last 10 years, thinking about, of course, the treatment of workers is, a priority, but there are also labor challenges that we can address through investing in development of workforce. Right. And that's what our learnings, that's where we've had a lot of learnings in the last 10 years.
Right. And I think this idea that good treatment of labor is good for business, right, is one of the things that has taken Shahi from where it was to where it is. And it's also, I think, a very strong counterpoint to this very classic idea that capitalism or manufacturing is based on the exploitation of workers, right? And I think there's no stronger counter argument than going to one of your factories and actually speaking to the workers there, which we did. And there's this strong sense of independence and pride and self-reliance that has come about in so many of the women that work and have worked at Shahi factories for so long. And I think the critics just do not engage with this enough, right? That how much does working in a factory add to people's lives? And instead there is this narrative of sweatshops, right? Which is just, I think, astounding. And just to give us a sense of scale, Harishji, just to how many sort of lives have been positively impacted by the work that you have done. When you started out, you said, in 1974, how many people were there working with your mother and yourself?
No, that time we were working in our home.
Right.
We were having 2 rooms, which we were using for the bedroom in the night and the work, and the cutting table I had to sleep in.
Right.
So it was a cutting table, we turned the bed in the night.
Right.
So it was just 3-room house we had, and there we were working in the daytime with workers, and nighttime we were sleeping in.
Right. And so this would have been yourself and maybe 5 or 6 workers at most, right? So just the classic.
And these were other women from the community.
From the community, right.
Who my grandmother would have recruited and convinced to join.
15 workers or so.
Yeah. So the classic garage startup, right?
Garage,
yeah.
Actually, garage startup.
Yeah, it was a house. Yeah.
My grandmother said that like some of the women who she convinced to come join her, she would tell them that, some of them she had heard they were sex workers and other, in other professions. And she said, hey, come work here. This is much better. So
even, and from small and humble beginnings, let me just try and build a vision for people. In 6 years, by 1980, how many people, how was it different? Do you remember? 5 or 6 years after you started, was it still looking the same largely? Did it look very different?
No, then we had taken some other, after a few years, we had taken, bought premises outside our home. We moved the factory there.
Okay.
So then there we started expanding,
Okay.
We went to a place called Ranjit Nagar, which was again not an authorized area, but it was we were able to get the property at a very low price.
Right.
And a lot of dense workers were there. Quite a good density was there.
Right.
We were able to get workers there itself, and we made 3-4 factories there.
So just 3-4 factories, you said. So just in terms of number of workers, how many are we talking?
600-700 workers.
600-700 workers, right? So already just in 5-6 years, you're going from just a small room to helping 600-700 people make a living, right? How about 10 years from then, 1991, which was a big moment for India, but for Shahi.
That time, you see, buyers were not too strict. We could make with our fabricators. We give work outside for fabrication.
Okay.
And they would manufacture and give it to us.
Okay, so you had third-party sort of people.
So we had our own factories, and we were giving work outside to do.
Okay.
So that was not our more like they would do on contract work.
Right, but if you combine both people who were selling to you and your own workers, how many people?
They were in fact more. We were doing till 2000. More was being made outside. We had very few own factories.
Okay.
So everything was being done outside.
Okay. But how many people approximately, just to, again, so by 1980 you were touching 600, 700 lives. By 1990, 2000, difficult to remember, of course, but even broad ballparks. Was it 10,000? Was it 15,000?
No, it was much less. No?
Much less than that. Okay. Wow.
Because everything started after 2005,
Okay.
Growth really happened after that.
Okay.
We moved to Okhla from there in 1985.
Okay.
From there, then we came to Faridabad in 2000.
So until then, you just had this, you had a knowledge that there is a lot of growth and a lot of orders waiting for you that you cannot take.
But we were restrictions for quota.
Yeah.
Business was not a restriction. Our own quota was a restriction.
Right. So, but then you grew very, very fast, right? Like, because then from 2005 to 2015 or so, when Anant joined, it was already 60,000 people.
And since then, so since 2013, it's doubled in size. We had 60,000, now it's like more than 100,000.
More than 100,000 people. Yeah. So it's incredible the number of lives that you're touching.
Because then we had made factories and started making factories in 1987, 88 in Bangalore.
Right.
Then this how we made some factories in Bangalore. We started growing there.
Right.
Growth was coming quite quick there because then the whole infrastructure was there. Workers were available, factories were available to rent and all.
Right. I've heard you mention this before. The government was very supportive also in Karnataka.
State governments,
State government was very supportive.
Always
have been. I think state governments are very supportive that way.
Right.
Even now also, wherever we are, good support from the state governments. They want to grow the employment, especially our kind of business.
Right. But I think, like you were saying earlier, some aspects of our laws and regulations hold back other people from investing.
The labor laws are that.
Yeah.
That can't be changed. That is that we can't let any worker go.
Yeah.
You can hire easily, but you can't let them go.
Right.
So the scare is there. Anybody starting new factory, they say, if I hire 1,000 people, I have to, they are with me forever,
Right.
So they get scared. Being scared is one, thing.
Right.
The bigger you get, the more risk you take on.
The more risk you take on.
Because then you have factories and capacities that you have to fill. If you don't have orders, then you can't, how do you, pay the wages and so on.
Absolutely.
But another interesting thing, just to touch on the overall reach, you mentioned that like 100,000, that's how many. So just for the listeners to understand, obviously at any given time, our employment would be 100,000. But there's also, it's like a, there's like a turnover,
Absolutely.
right? There's attrition. And it's actually a problem, right? Like we want to reduce it. We're investing in programs to find ways to actually incentivize workers to stay longer.
Right.
But the other side of it is that, let's say, in a given month, we had 6% attrition. That means your workforce, we're getting this many
That
new
much
people
larger,
in.
absolutely.
So in a year, you're actually touching way more than 100,000.
That's actually a really interesting point also, because over time, the number of people you have given employment to is much larger.
Much larger.
Much larger. Yeah, absolutely.
The number of people that would have worked at Shahi at one point would be much larger than the current employment.
Correct. Exactly. And so that's how many lives you helped, right? And I think that that's a very important perspective, that employers generate much, much more value than just the goods that they
people
make.
learn the skill, they go and work other factories, they go move other places, they work, they don't leave the work,
Exactly.
So people leaving us, they don't go and sit at home, they go work some other places.
Exactly.
So that way, if you see every year, if you have 110,000 people working now, we have full team coming up next year.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, if we look at this, not from like a business point of view, but from a development lens, because Shahi has such a large workforce, and because all these people are, showing up to the factory every day, if you want to deliver some kind of intervention to improve their lives, the intervention can be delivered at the workplace, right? You don't have to mobilize, you don't have to go find where to do the training or this, health program or whatever.
I think the biggest intervention is the employment itself, right?
Yeah, but even on top of that.
On top of that, you can go further.
Like, for example, this year, we're in the process of providing a free lunch program for workers. Right? So if, let's say someone, an NGO or the government or anyone wanted to serve 100,000 meals a day, it would be a challenge to figure out who you're serving it to, how do you do it? Whereas for us, you deliver it at, during the lunch hour at the workplace.
Absolutely. And here, I take the example of Bangladesh, right, where garment exports has gone much further than it has in India, right? And this is for us, I think it's a sad thing for a country, right, like us. We have been stuck as a country at somewhere between 16 to 18 to 20 billion dollars of exports for more than 10 years now, right? And in that same time, Bangladesh has gone up to 45, 47 billion dollars of garments. And it's not about the $1 billion of garments. It's about the lives that we could have touched in this industry, right? Had we
Absolutely.
Been more proactive in supporting the industry with what it needs, had we thought that our labor laws are actually hurting our workers and not helping our workers, right? We always, we have this false conception that labor laws help workers. Labor laws actually
But unions are not understanding that. They should understand it's not helping them.
Yeah.
Unions should very well understand this will be opening up more doors for employment.
Yes.
More ideas will come in the country.
Yes.
Now, still we are able to understand, even people in India also are so scared to put factories, they want to have their life. They think worker giving employment is like a liability on them,
Yes.
There's no option to, but see now, anywhere, Bangladesh, even China also, there's no issue at all.
Yeah.
You don't have work, you don't have to keep on continuing to give them employment.
Right. This strikes me as, it's an incredibly important point, and I hope that our story of Shahi, right, is helps people think about this in a different way, that you can improve the lives of so many people in such powerful ways by giving them employment. And I think I was actually incredibly inspired when we spoke to some of the workers at your factories and the kind of stories that we heard from them. And these are women workers, like you said, 70% of workers at Shahi are women workers. And the stories of their work are so inspiring. Are there stories you have, you've interacted with so many of these people, are there stories that stick out in your own memories of specific workers or specific people who have been with you in this journey?
No, we see workers, women, they feel so proud that they are able to give education to the children and they see them grow, they work, and some of the, some girls I mentioned, they have the children moving to Bangalore to IT industry and all, working there. This all transformation, they're coming from worker to, children growing up and going, getting into IT and all. So it's life changing,
Yeah.
So this is, because they have means, they have their earnings to do all that. And we see in our business, I say business is one part we are doing, but the CSR is coming for free along with it. You don't have to make any effort for CSR.
Yeah, that's true.
It's part of business.
Especially because this business is so employment intensive, right? Most of it depends on people coming to work. And this actually is one question that I want to ask you, because employment intensive businesses often get this sort of question directed at them. Is automation not just going to come in and take over, right? So I just want to hear, sort of, as someone who knows this business so well, should we be worried that India has already missed this bus of employment intensive manufacturing, of employment intensive business? Now it's going to be automation, etc. What is your thinking here?
No, automation will only bring improvements in business, but this business will be always very intensive. The way the design and all, fabrics and all, so the pleasure of wearing clothes,
Right.
See, today also if you go for shopping, when you travel also, 90% you do clothes,
Right.
What else to shop?
Right. But so, and in the manufacturing process, is automation even on the horizon? Are you seeing
We're doing it.
competitors?
We have a lot of automation.
Right.
We are continuously having automation in factories,
Right.
only for improvement and skilling the work,
Right. So,
So
productivity increases, but work remains.
And then also quality improves,
Right.
Consistent quality comes, Like with hand, we can give only certain quality, but when it becomes automated, it becomes, so mostly now workers we have in the factory, they become like, they're just operators.
Right.
Rest, machine does everything,
Right.
I would say it like this. So if you look at the textile industry, fabric making, right?
Yes.
That used to be very manual process,
Right.
knitting, weaving. Now it's fully automated.
Right.
You go to a textile factory and you barely see any people.
Right.
It's all machinery, and
Right.
you can see the most fancy machinery. The garment factories have, which is like the assembly of the garments, right? You receive the raw fabric, the raw material, and you cut it and assemble it. That is still very manual for multiple reasons. One is because it relies on minimum wage workers, so the cost of
Automation is not
yeah,
there.
it's still that's still. The other thing is when you're assembling clothes, you're dealing with soft materials.
Right.
So if you're trying to create some kind of robotic technology, handling soft fabrics, especially considering the number of styles, is very hard. So we've seen some automations where they figured out how to assemble garments without manual intervention. But if you're able to do it for a really specific case, let's say this type of fabric or this type of garment,
Right.
then it's still not valuable to the industry because we're producing hundreds of styles,
Exactly.
right? So if it can only do it for one style,
It's not useful.
So it's going to take a while. But I think what is going on right now is what they call de-skilling. So if there's an operation, let's say attaching a button or a specific type of stitch that required a highly skilled operator, now there's machines that let a lower skilled, like a
Sure.
C grade or B grade person
Sure.
do that.
Sure.
Or there's machines that allow one operator to do multiple operations.
Right.
So in that way, you can actually reduce the intensity of the labor required. But it's hard to imagine in the near future how clothes can be assembled without manual intervention.
Right. And these number of designs thing you said, it's always increasing, right? You always have new designs coming in all the time. So
I mean, fashion is changing,
Yeah.
right? It's like you see brands, it's not like, obviously you'll have like luxury brands that will still have maybe 4 collections a year, but otherwise,
Yeah.
you'll see these large brands have new clothing items coming out every few weeks or
Yeah.
whatever.
And I think, and this is why I think, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts also, I think this is why manufacturing, and especially employment-intensive manufacturing, is critical for India, right? I think there were a few people making this case a few years ago that services is the pathway to go for India and not manufacturing. I think today, if I look at the world, services are being automated much faster with AI rather than manufacturing. And manufacturing actually will require human skills, I feel, for much longer. So just wanted to...
There's even with AI, there was a sense that is AI going to affect frontline jobs, similar to how people are talking about automation. But I think we've seen that actually it's very hard for it to change or replace the need for, hands and manual labor.
Right.
Where we're seeing it have an impact is actually more in creative areas of
Correct.
work, design.
And coding
Yeah,
and stuff like
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Yes.
So I think the transition to, more automation, use of AI, we should think about like how it's going to impact workers and,
Right.
and all of those things. But it still feels like it's a very worker-centric kind
Right.
of business.
Yeah, and so that's really interesting and important to hear from a strategy perspective for India, because it means that as a strategy, we have to prioritize sectors like this one, right? We have to prioritize sectors where things actually get made by people for providing employment, for providing gainful creation.
Historically, we've seen it across the world, right?
Yeah.
Garment industry being an engine of growth
Exactly.
in the UK, in Japan, in the
Exactly.
US.
And we haven't allowed it to happen as much as we should in India. One other thing I also wanted to, one thing we heard with respect to your workers, you mentioned how they are very proud of being able to earn enough to send their children into different places. One story I remember hearing, and it was so interesting, was it wasn't just income, it's how emotional independence and it gives you confidence and courage to approach the world a different way. One of the ladies was telling us how when she was newly married, her in-laws used to dictate everything in the house. but because she was able to work at Shahi and earn an income and come outside the house, it almost brought in this confidence and ability to just live her life differently, which had nothing to do with income, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting and
Yeah. Many girls have said this. They say after they've started earning, they become like part of decision makers in the family.
yeah,
And before that, they had no say in decision making,
yeah,
even with their parents' house also.
Before that,
Getting-
they may not have even had the ability to have to move around, to go out. You know,
Yeah.
they may be stuck at home a little. Their mobility is restricted.
yes,
And now, because they're coming to the workplace to earn, they're also interacting and socializing with a lot of other women who maybe have similar experiences. In that sense, it is kind of like a community center, right?
yeah,
Thousands of women maybe have similar experiences now interacting, and you know, the interactions, there's whatever's happening just in the day-to-day operations, but we also have, you know, soft skill training programs, right?
right,
And if you look at the journey of someone who goes through this program, it's really interesting. Because on day one, you'll have a classroom, 50 people, 50 women. And the women on day one are too shy to even introduce themselves in front of the group. These are their peers, you know, other women in the production, you know, in the shop floor. And you see the journey, like as they go through this training, they learn about communication, time management, problem solving, a lot of different life skills.
sure,
And by the end, you see like two things I can share that kind of illustrate this point. One is that they say a lot of the women say that now in the morning their husbands make the chai. Like it's a small thing, but you know it's symbolic of like a big change in thinking, right? The domestic work, because otherwise these women were essentially working this 8-hour job and then running everything at home without much support from their partners. So hearing that shows you that there's actually a shift in how people are thinking. And the other thing is, you know, these same women who maybe were too shy to even introduce themselves are now sharing their stories with, you know, when you go visit, they're
Yeah.
talking to you, they're sharing it in front of the Shahi board. We've had, you know, our customers send their CEOs and, you know, owners even to meet some of these women, and they have the confidence to talk about their journey in front of these people.
yeah. That's amazing, right? And I think this also speaks to a big aspect of we often blame Indian culture for our low female labor force participation, right? But I always think it's lack of opportunity, right? If people had a job to go to, if there were more employers like Shahi who were able to set up, I think women would go in, take that opportunity, and that's how you change culture, right?
I mean, the thing is, because we rely so much on women to, you know, to run the factories, we've had to think a lot about how do we make these jobs work for women,
Right.
right? The traditional way jobs are designed, firstly, may not work for anyone, right? But even if they do, it's probably more so men. So thinking about how do we make these women-friendly jobs, but that's not necessarily like the first instinct that people have or the first strategy. I mean, you look at some other sectors, right? Look at the auto sector in India. It's such a big part of the Indian GDP, I think 7%.
Right.
But if you look at the participation of women in auto, it's 5 or 6%.
Right.
It's really low. It's because they've not been able to successfully across the industry
Right.
make their jobs, you know, work for women. And I think the garment sector, one advantage it has is it's more socially acceptable for women to work in garment factories. So that stigma around, you know, in an auto factory, they might think that, oh, women don't typically work here, the work isn't suited for them, this, that. So there are some stigmas, but you're right, it takes employers to actually
able to go
be
there and do
deliberate.
that. And I think if you see world over, I think auto industry does not typically employ women, but the garment industry always does,
Yeah.
right? Everywhere, the garment industry, footwear industry, the electronics assembly industries, any industry that is more labor intensive tends to employ women in large numbers. And for the same reason you mentioned, Harish ji, we don't encourage labor intensive employment in the country because we make it so difficult to say hire people, to manage people, to fire people if we need to. So we, in some ways, we handicap our labor and our women from getting the best jobs that they can. And it always feels to me like it's a disservice that we do to our people. But anyway, so I think again, wonderful stories about how people have benefited. If you were to think about where Shahi and where the country are headed in terms of growth, what is it that comes to mind? What do you think of? What do we need to do, either as a country or yourselves as a company? How optimistic are you about growth? How do you think about the next 10 years, the next 15 years?
No, growth is going to be there, of course, because people, they want to enjoy wearing clothes. They
Yes.
get more pleasure by buying clothes.
Yes.
It's so affordable also,
Yeah.
So that thing will not be, rather, more focus will be coming to a country like India, because we have got, you see, Bangladesh has got only manufacturing. They don't have support of raw material.
Right.
Now they're putting factories for making raw material, but still they're not as what India has. India has got right from cotton, spinning, weaving, even for man-made fabrics also.
Right.
So potential is huge. There's nothing looking behind.
Right.
We only have to have enough capacities to build in.
Right.
Business is not, and our customers also want to come to India than rather make factories, goods in Bangladesh or China. So
Right.
what is happening in those countries?
Right. One of the things you mentioned just now actually reminds me, you spoke about raw material, right? And availability of raw material. And one other big decision that Shahi made was to be vertically integrated up the supply chain, right? So tell me a little bit more about why you did that and how important do you think that decision has been for you?
No, the only constraint for growth was always the good supply chain, getting good quality fabrics on time.
Right.
So I thought this could be only overcome by when we put our own factories to build this.
Right.
So we made one factory in Ghaziabad, which was fabric processing mill and also weaving mill. Then we found success there. Our business was growing. Then we thought we can put in knits business. We put for knits in Shimoga. Then we put for woven also in Shimoga.
Right.
So supplier, almost 80% fabric we get our own.
Right.
So we have confidence when we sell to customer, we'll give you goods on time and give you quality goods.
Right.
Because we are doing all our own control.
Right. So it has mattered a lot. And do you find that importing inputs for the fabric is a problem, or like how? So do you
No,
import
there's no-
fiber, or do you procure fiber locally? How do you?
No, when we
usually-
import, we can import fabrics and all,
Right.
but then it needs longer lead
Of
time.
course. Of course.
But customers want to place orders where fabrics are. They say
Right.
we want short lead times.
Right.
So short lead times we can do only by our own fabrics.
Right.
Now Bangladesh also has this constraint because they have longer lead times now. Because most of fabric is imported over there now.
Right.
So we are at much better situation.
Right.
And if you're making fabric, like the cotton, for example, if you're using that, it's readily available here.
Right.
We have so much. We're the largest, I think, exporter of cotton.
Cotton. Yeah. But what about man-made fabric? Because that's
Yes.
part of the ecosystem. That
Yeah,
hasn't-
that capability, I think we're also developing.
Okay.
And
We put
mean-
a fabric mill, we put this. So we're doing weaving and processing, knitting on man-made fabrics. So that also will grow.
Right. And so if we're just thinking about what has set Shahi apart, right? I think so far for me, it's that you guys are entrepreneurs with a difference. You really care about the sector, the work, right? And you're willing to take on risks that not everybody is. That you really focused on professional management and bringing in people who understand the business, even if they're not part of the family, to help run it. And that you vertically integrated and you made this decision to cut lead times. What else would you say is there that you would attribute Shahi's success to?
I think from my point of view, like I said, I've been working in the company just a bit more than 10 years. It's a 50-year-old business. So there's a lot of people who have been really, part of this journey or leading this journey for much longer. But from my point of view, I think one of the big factors for growth is a growth mindset, right? Everyone wants to, starting from the top, find ways to continue to grow and look for reasons to grow also, right? At first, it might have been revenue targets. But I think even by 2012, 2013, there was a sense that hey, we're creating a lot of jobs. This is important for the country. This is valuable. And the way we've sort of built on that, I would say, is like, can we create high quality employment? Can we make sure that, these are good quality jobs? And can we reduce any of the negative impacts of a business like this, right? Not just in terms of better labor management, but also environmental impacts and so on. How can we keep innovating on that area? And first of all, I have to say that all of this thinking is possible because Shahi spent a lot of years fixing and figuring out the other challenges: infrastructure, having good factories, having vertical integration, everything we talked about. But now it puts us in a position, and me in particular, I'm able to lead a team that's focused on sustainability innovation. And it's such a big part of, I think, the future of how this industry has to operate. On the labor side, we already talked about, the fact that there's tons of ways that Shahi's thinking about addressing the challenges workers face, and then also unlocking business productivity or growth through that.
Right.
Soft skills, we talked about health programs, this free meal program. It's something we wanted to do, but we also believe that it could contribute to a healthier workforce that's also more productive.
Right.
And hopefully, we can understand this question better through research. But then on the environmental side, the fashion industry, aside from what you talked about earlier, where people say that, the garment sector has all these problems with labor and sweatshops and so on, there's also a whole other side of things where people say that it's a highly polluting industry. It pollutes water, it pollutes the environment in different ways. It creates so much, excess. So I think that's where there's tons of opportunity to say, we can do it better, right? We can already, Shahi's made a ton of investments towards renewable electricity. So we're very close to getting to 100% of all of our electricity from renewable sources, in particular solar, but wind as well. And then coal is a big part of thermal energy. It's the main fuel source for our thermal energy. And now by the end of this year, we're going to phase coal out completely. So that's tons and tons of coal that will no longer be burned, and instead will switch to biofuel. In addition to that, there's tons of innovation around next generation materials, different processes and machines that can reduce your requirement on water, chemicals, etc. So I think that's another thing that's exciting, and we're able to focus on that again because a lot of the other parts of the business have been stabilized and are running well.
That's really interesting, and I think it also tells us a little bit more about how we should think about encouraging industries like this, right? Because if you load all the problems onto an industry all at once, you never get to a stage where you can actually tackle them. So just letting industries grow and scale and then allowing them to figure problems out is one thing that I think we haven't done enough of.
I mean, first of all, just to keep, we keep coming back to this point, but formal sector jobs, they're very transformative. We know that, right? People come, join. If they were working in agriculture before, a minimum wage is much more than the average agriculture.
2.5 to 3 times.
Right? So then you have, PF, ESI, all of these, support systems that if you're employed. So there's that whole angle. But then now we're also saying that this industry can actually, it's not too far away from being one where, like I said, renewable electricity, no more coal, much better environmental. All of this is like, in the near future could be achieved.
That's amazing. Especially now that we have this China plus one moment in the world, right? The US, I think even to some extent Europe and the UK are also looking for other places to supply. The UK, we've just gotten a free trade agreement. So what do we need to fully capitalize on this moment where there is a lot of potential, supply chains are looking to move out? What does India have to do to prepare? What does Shahi have to do to prepare?
I think people have to go forward and put factories. They don't have to say, after I get order, I put factory. That won't happen. They have to have faith that this is good business, this is long-term business. And this is good for the country, and we have got good potential.
Right.
And business is there.
Right.
Now, today, if we say China plus one, we are still, doesn't make any difference because where is our capacity?
Right.
So I have to put more factories to show that, we're making China plus one, only by that.
Right.
So our own people entrepreneurs have to have faith that no business is there and then put factories,
Right. And from the government side, we have to make sure that we make it easy for people to do that.
Now, government is quite free in that.
Government
They're
is
not
very
stopping growth in that. In fact, most of the states are giving so much subsidies, to put factories in their states.
Right.
Now, I think this is a great business for our country, and we should really see. I know this is something, we should not really see that we need apparel parks or weak industrial parks to put this. We can put factories where workers are there. Take work to the places where people live, And this, because cost of capital is so less, And so we got employment where factories, put workers are there, So which other business can do this?
Right. So I think on that note, we should do whatever we can to encourage the apparel business in this country. Thank you so much, Harishji. Thank you, Anant, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks a
thank you,
lot.
Rahul. Thank you, team.